Three complete different stories broke today in America. A moon launch, a federal judge ordering the White House to stop construction, and the US Army attack helicopters hovering over a celebrity's house. Now, the most people will watch these three stories separately and move on. But I am going to connect all three of them right now. And when I do, you are not going to able to unsee it. Stay with me because this is the video nobody else is making. Today is April 1st, 2026, and no, this is not a April Fool's joke. Every single story I am about to cover is real, verified, and breaking right now across every major news network in America. You know, here is the story number one. NASA launched the Artemis 2 mission today, sending four astronauts to the 9-day journey around the moon. This is the farthest any human being has traveled from the Earth is over 54 years. This is the historic generational moment for American science and exploration. Here is story number two. A federal judge issued a court order today telling the Trump administration that construction happened inside the White House ballroom, ordered by the president himself, has to stop immediately. The judge's words were blunt, direct, and unprecedented in recent memory. Here is the story number three. Two United States Army Apache attack helicopters, some of them most lethal military aircraft on the planet, deviated from their training route and hovered over the private hillside home of Kid Rock, the musician and outspoken Trump supporter. While he come outside and saluted their crews, the US Army has now launched a formal administrative review to investigate how and why this happened. Three stories, three completely different headlines. These separated news cycles running simultaneously right now across CNN, Fox, NBC, and every major outline in between. But here is what nobody, not one major anchor, not one prime time host, is stopping to say out loud today. These three stories are about exactly the same thing, and that thing is the most important question is American life right now. Let me see you the the thread that connects all three. Every single one of these stories, the moon launch, the court order, the military helicopters, is fundamentally a story about institutional authority, about whether America's great institutions still command the respect why they were built on, about whether the rules and norms and boundaries that hold a superpower together are holding or quietly starting to crack. Start with NASA and Artemis 2. NASA is one of the most trusted institutions in American public life. Across decades, the political division, across culture, wars and budget fights, and changing administrations, NASA has maintained a level of public credibility that almost no other federal agency can claim. When NASA says we are ready to launch, most Americans believe it. When NASA puts four human beings on the rocket and fires them towards the moon, most Americans watch with pride. But look more carefully and what's happening unearthed on that pride today. The Artemis program has faced years of budget battles, political interference, and delays driven not by engineering but by the funding disputes in Congress. The mission that launched today is operating under financial pressure that provides deep space programs never faced at this scale. NASA's institutional authority is ability to make a long-term scientific commitments and have those commitments honored across administrations is being tested in ways the public realizes. Four brave astronauts are right now traveling through deep space, carrying on their shoulders not just the hopes of the nation but the credibility of an institution fighting for their own survival. That is the real story behind the launch. Now, move to the court order. The federal judge told to the President of the United States, the most powerful individual in the most powerful nation on the earth, there is something he ordered to be done inside the building where he lives and works has to be stopped. Full stop. Think about what judicial authority actually is. At its core, a judge has no army. A judge has no police force personally loyal to them. A judge has piece of paper with a ruling on it. And The entire weight of that ruling rests on one thing: the assumptions, and the executive branch of government will respect it. That it is. That is the entire enforcement mechanism voluntarily respect for institutional authority. And right now, the assumptions is being stressed, tested at a frequency and intensity that legal scholars describe as historically unusual. Court order after court order, ruling after ruling, and in each case, a central question is the same: will the executive branch complete? Will the institutional norm hold? Now, come to the Apache helicopters, and this is where the connection becomes impossible to deny. The United States military is the most powerful fighting force in the human history. It is also, by the design and by the law, meant to be completely and absolutely apolitical, a principle of civilian control of the military. The idea that armed forces serve the nation and the constitution, not any individual political leader or a party, is one of the fundamental commitments of American democracy. Every officer swears on oath to the Constitution, not to the president, not to the party, to the document. And yet, the Apache helicopters went to off their training route and appeared over the home of the man who is publicly, loudly associated with the political identity of the current president. Whether the deviation was authorized, whether it is spontaneous, whether it was innocent or calculated. The army is now investigating precisely because that optics of military assets appearing in politically charged circumstances cannot be casually dismissed. Here is the emotional truth of the movement, and I want you to sit with for a second. NASA is the institution fighting to maintain its credibility against political and budget pressure. The federal courts in the institutions fighting to maintain their enforcement authority against an executive branch that does not always comply willingly. The military is an institution fighting to maintain its political identity against the gravitational pull of the most politically intense environment in the modern American history. Three institutions, three stress tests, one single day. And they all point to the same underlying factor like line in 2026 America. The question of who and what commands institutional respect, and whether the respect is freely given or has to be fought for, is the defining tension of our national life. So what actually happens next across the all three stories? For Artemis 2, the next 9 days will be watched closely by the every space agency on the earth, by every defense contractor tied to the program, and by every member of Congress who has ever voted on NASA's budget. A successful mission strengthens NASA's hand enormously in the coming budget negotiations. A problem, any problem, even a minor one, becomes a emulation of those who want to redirect funding or question the program management. The astronauts aboard the spacecraft are, in the very real sense, fighting for their institution's future with every mile they travel. For the White House construction ruling, the administration's legal team will appeal. The case will work its way through the courts. The outcome will add and one more data point to the running tally of executive judicial confrontations that is already being studied by the constitutional scholars as a political landmark period in American legal history. Congress will watch. In 2026, midterm candidates will use it. The story will not end with today's ruling. It is just beginning. For the Apache helicopter incident, the Army Administrative Review will produce findings. Personals will likely face disciplinary action at the crew level. The official record will describe it as a protocol deviation. But the larger question, whether the military's institutional neutrality is being preserved as or gradually eroded, will not be answered by one review. It will be answered or not answered by the accumulated weight of incident after incident, decision after decision over months and years. What all three stories share in the weeks ahead is this: they will each resolve. Just think about it. On paper, at their own level, the astronauts will return. The court's case will continue. the army review will close, but the deeper question, the one that connects all three, will remain wide open. You know what? Here is my prediction, and I'm going to make it clearly and directly. America's institutions will hold through 2026. NASA will complete Artemis 2. That occurs will continue to issue rulings, and the executive branch will continue in the most cases to complete. The military will continue to investigate their own lapse and maintain imperfectly but genuinely commitment to a political service. But the holding will not be comfortable. It will not be clean. It will require constant effort, constant vigilance, and constant pressure from citizens who understand what is actually at stake. The moon launch today is a reminder of what American institutions can accomplish when they functions as designed. When brilliant, courageous people are given resources, trust, and political support to the extraordinary things. Four human beings are traveling through deep space right now because generations of institutional commitment made be possible. The court order and the helicopter investigations are reminders of what happens when institutional boundaries are tested and why those boundaries exist in the first place. All three stories gather tell you something that is individual headlines cannot. America in 2026 is a country whose institutions are simultaneously proving their greatness and fighting for their survival. This is not a contradiction. That is the most honest description of where we are. Pay attention to all of it because what happens to these institutions in the next few years will shape every American life for decades to come. If this video goes give you a perspective who have not heard anywhere else today. If connecting these three stories changed how you see what you happening in America right now, then please hit that like button because it is genuinely helps the content reach the people who need it most. Subscribe to the channel right now. Turn on notifications because this is what we do here. We find the thread that connects the stories everyone else covers separately and we pull it until the full picture comes into view. And drop your comment below which of these three institutions, NASA, the courts, or the military, do you think is under the most serious pressure right now? I want to know what you think. I read every single comment. Let's talk about this together. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching.